Good morning, one and all. On behalf of our president, Dr. Jim Clauber, and all of Calhoun's faculty and staff, I want to extend a heartfelt welcome to you to Calhoun's annual Veterans Day program. Your service and sacrifice and the service and sacrifice of all who have come before you and those who will come after you represent the very best of what our country and what our communities stand for. Thank you for safeguarding our country, our way of life, our liberties, and our families. We have an extraordinary program for you this morning, on this beautiful November morning. I know you will leave feeling grateful, encouraged, and uplifted by the talents and efforts, the songs and words, the collected message, if you will, of those assembled. At this point, I'd like to ask you to please stand for the presentation of the colors, our Pledge of Allegiance, and our national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Well, it's awesome to be here today, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to focus my comments today on how our constantly deploying military is affecting our families and our communities. We have 33,000 children in Alabama that are part of military-connected families, and that has a particular effect on our communities and our structures, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today and my own experience. Because I'm a veteran and I served as a JAG for many years in the active duty Air Force, and then for another 5 or so in the reserves in the Alabama Air National Guard. I was elected, as mentioned, in 2010 and re-elected in 2014, and left the Guard to serve you in that role, and that's where I am now. I joined the Air Force in 1998, and the military was very different, very, very different then. Our locations overseas were mostly hardened. We had the containment mission over Iraq, so we still were deploying, but for the most part, we didn't do nearly as many deployments as our military members do today. The new normal today is a constant state of deployment for all the services, active and reserve components. This has particular effects on our families. We know that children deal with a lot of emotions and feelings, not to mention the loss of a household member that can help with school plays and sports and homework and all that. And it can get to be a really tricky thing for our military families. My own story along these lines begins when I met Captain John Schultz in 1999 at the Officers Club at Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. They say that fighter pilots have an esprit de corps, and I guess that must be true because John was headed to Korea, and I had a great job in San Antonio where the food was good and the party never stopped. And I found myself, y'all can laugh at that, by the way, that's kind of funny. But I found myself volunteering to go to Korea, and it wasn't just John, the zipper-suited sun god, as fighter pilots like to be called. It was a real pull to be in the fight. I was at Air Education and Training Command headquarters at Randolph, and training is important, and that's what we got to do, but that's not where the action was. In those pre-9/11 days, the action was in Southeast Asia, and not only was John going there, but I just felt that tug, and our veterans among us will understand that tug to go be near the fight or be in the fight. You just feel it. That's where you want to be. And those, so after I went to Korea, which was a one-year deployment. John followed on a couple of months behind me, and that fall after he arrived, he asked me to marry him, and I thought I'm a smart lawyer, I don't have very good odds in this super cool fighter pilot world. I better set the date quick, and I gave my mother 2 months' notice to plan a wedding, and she did that. So we were married in 2000 and spent the weekends together because John wasn't actually stationed at Osan. He was stationed at Kunsan Air Force Base, a couple hundred miles to our south. And we went back and forth on weekends until we got word that we would go to be stationed at Pope Air Force Base in Fort Bragg. The Army calls Fort Bragg the center of the universe because it's the home of the 82nd Airborne and also home to many of the Army's special operations forces. John was assigned, I was going to go to the base legal office at Pope, which is co-located with Fort Bragg. It's actually on Fort Bragg. And John was headed to be the commander of what we were told was this sleepy little assignment at the 22nd Air Support Operations Flight at Fort Bragg, which was our only Air Force unit at that time that supported U.S. Army Special Forces with tactical air control. You can see where this is going. So when I arrived, and I moved before John. This seems to be a common theme in our marriage. I go first, I set up the house, I do everything, and then he arrives, and everything's great. So this was the first time that happened. PCS, which is the term we use in the military, permanent change of station. I went ahead of John, got off the plane, and literally, I think I was off the plane 5 minutes, and my new boss says, "Congratulations, Captain Hunter. Welcome to Pope. You're going to the desert in 1 month." And I was headed for Kuwait. So I set up an apartment, went off to the desert. John had not arrived yet, and so we missed each other, didn't see each other at all. I want to kind of digress for a second and tell you guys a little bit about what it was like to be, because you can follow the timeline here. I was in Kuwait on 9/11, 20 miles or so from Iraq, and I want to talk you through what went through my mind on 9/11, because where I was. We all have our stories, and this one's mine. There's a little bit of vernacular in it because this is actually how I was thinking and what I was feeling at the time. So I woke up today thinking about a memorial I attended at Pope Air Force Base in 2002 for an airman whose will I had written. I can't remember his name, and it's really bothering me. He fought terrorism for us, and he was killed while deployed. My mind wandered, and I remembered where I was on 9/11, Ali Al Salim Air Base, Kuwait. Late afternoon, our time, when the first plane crashed into World Trade Center 1, where I used to work when I lived in New York City in the early 90s. The sirens and the giant voice went off. This is not an exercise. The young private whom I was helping with a credit issue looked at me, big eyes. He was one of our Patriot missile battery commanders. Patriot was the weapon system that we had there in place to protect Kuwait City in case the Iraqis decided to come back into Kuwait. I told that airman to run. Colonel Mike Koster was our base commander. He was a pilot of our then new air platform, the Predator. It was an unmanned aerial vehicle used for reconnaissance. Colonel Koster was just the kind of guy who would fly all night and then stay up all the next day and go to bed the next night and get a good night's sleep, and he was good to go. He's just that kind of guy. Well, the problem for us is that 9/11 happened in the afternoon, and he'd been up all night, and he was going to be tasked to be up the whole next night. So we all came together. Colonel Koster kept it together for a little while, but then started to break down, and the only other female officer on base was the doc, and she sent Colonel Koster off to bed. It was a crazy time. We were in the middle of this, and I don't know why I remembered this, but we were in the middle of this change from this term called ThreatCon Charlie, and some of you old timers remember what ThreatCon Charlie means. That means it's bad, and we were in the middle of trying to change it to this term called FPCon. I don't know why we changed it, but we did, and I remember thinking, what's going on? And we were trying to figure it out, and it was bad. And this was Saddam's best opportunity to roll back into Kuwait City, and we were in his way. And I remembered when I arrived that they told me that when the Iraqi army came through before, they had hung the base commander and the officers from the flagpoles. The bunker nearest my hooch was near the satellite. We had this big satellite that controlled the Iraqi airspace. And I remember thinking, I'm not going there. I'm not going there, not near the satellite. What's the first thing they're going to hit? They're going to hit the satellite after they hit our Patriots. So I went and found another bunker that was near the clinic, and I was terrified, y'all, of being captured without my glasses. Those were the pre-LASIK surgery days. And so I hid a pair of my glasses in the bunker that I decided that I would run to because I wanted to be able to see if we were invaded. So that's how it went. And in the days and weeks that followed, we all got really, really tired. And whenever you left your hooch, you had to wear your Kevlar. Didn't matter what was going on, going to eat, going to the bathroom, you had to wear your Kevlar. And if you don't think funny things happen in war, you know they do. They happen, and one night we were all so tired, and I got up to go to the toilet trailer, which was, I had smartly chosen a hooch that was just far enough away from the toilet trailer to not have the smell, but not so close that I could walk to it pretty easily. So I got up to go, and I put on my stuff, and I was walking out, and I had no pants on. None, no pants. So we were all very, very tired. We had named one of our predators 8-Ball. We just decided to name our predators. They weren't alive, they weren't people, but it just felt good to send them off to the war and with a name. And 8-Ball was killed in action. We don't know if he was shot down or if he was fell out of the sky, whatever, had a mechanical problem, but 8-Ball died. And we mourned him, and we mourned the tower victims, and we mourned the Pentagon. What are we doing? What has our world come to? We armed the UAV, which those predators, that was the first time we ever put a weapon called Hellfire on them. And I was the JAG for that, and I was able to give our pilots who are back on the ground their aerial rules of engagement and their law of armed conflict briefing. We never thought we would do that because Predator was a reconnaissance mission, but we armed it with Hellfire and we sent it over to rain down hell on the bad guys, and they did. And we watched the video and it felt good, and then it didn't. It just felt like the beginning of something endless. And Peter Jennings was the news anchor, and I liked him because he made me feel better. He was kind of old school, not like the news now. He was very crisp, and his goal was to deliver the news in an unbiased way, and he did that effectively. He's gone now. He's long since died, but he did a wonderful job for America as a news anchor, and he was a hero. And I wrote in my Facebook post that I still can't remember that airman's name. And that's still bothering me to this day. I can't remember his name. I hope I will one day, but it doesn't matter. He was a hero. And things changed. Things changed dramatically after 9/11. In my own marriage, I felt it. Remember I said John was deployed when I got back from Korea. Well, John, with his unit, went to kick off the war in Afghanistan just before I got back from Kuwait in 2001, in December of 2001. And John's flight of TACPs would go into a near constant state and a cycle of deployments over the next 24 months and become one of, if not the most decorated flight in the Air Force at that time in the War on Terror. John and I spent almost the first 15 months of our marriage apart. It's a miracle that we made it, and it's a testament to our family and friends who supported and encouraged us. I vividly remember a friend of mine at church. I was very upset. I was a newlywed. I wanted my husband back, and we were missing Christmas, and she said, leave that tree up. And I did. And that tree blazed in my window until March of 2002. I bet my neighbors thought I was crazy, but I was not shaking that tree down. So he came home, and we had Valentine's and Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the holidays that we'd missed. John deployed again and again and again, and I did a couple of short tours at Incirlik Air Base in Turkey, and we had a baby and kept our marriage together in the midst of a brutal post 9/11 operational tempo. So the day came in early 2006 when I was just emotionally done with the active duty. I was expecting our second baby, and we had a new normal. And the new normal was a constantly deploying United States military, and that was the politics of things, and that was how it was going to be, and it was just really a definite reality. I was in Montgomery at the Air Force JAG School getting some training, some lawyer training that we do in the Air Force. And I took a drive over to the Alabama Air National Guard unit at the 187th Fighter Wing, which is co-located with the airport there in Montgomery. And they flew fighter planes, my husband's airframe, the F-16 there. And I thought maybe they need a lawyer and maybe they need a pilot, and what are the chances that they might need both? And I ran in, I didn't know anybody there. I knew nobody, and I walked in and I ran into the wing commander, Colonel Jeff Smiley, and I put on my best sales pitch ever. And he hired me. He needed a JAG, so I was a no-brainer. So he checked me out, hired me, and I said, well, I'm a twofer. You got to take my husband. And they did. And pilots are kind of like quarterbacks on football teams. We all kind of fit ourselves around them. So I was really worried that my husband wouldn't go for this move. But he did. He knew that I needed to come back to Alabama, and the babies were coming, and just like you feel that warrior pull or that calling to do something, you feel that calling when you start to have your babies, and you want to be a mom, and that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a mom here in Alabama, and he brought me home, and I will forever love him for that. So we did that. We came back and we got civilian jobs, and we both had guard jobs, and I left when I got into politics, but that's our life, and that's been our life for a long time, and I got very, very comfortable with my comfortable life. And so John told me a year ago, well, about 2 years ago now, he said, I'm going again. He volunteered. He volunteered to go again. And I was not happy about it. I'll just confess to you. I wasn't happy about it one bit, and all those feelings came rushing back, and I was scared to lose him for 6 months or, forever. People are getting killed over there, and that was how I felt. And it came in the middle of a re-election campaign for me, and I just really felt sorry for myself, Not the right way to feel, not the right way to behave, not the right about any of that. But I have some perspective on it now, and here's what I can tell you about that experience. I was encouraged to find the positive by lots of people. They did it lots of different ways, some kindly, some not so kindly, but I needed to hear that. That was a message that I needed to hear. My mother was very clear that I had to find it in myself to be positive for John's sake, because John needed that. And I did. And the biggest positive I can tell you that came from that time away from my husband was the relationship I forged with my kids. I thought I was close to my kids. We became a team. And we just had to. The kids took on responsibilities because there was no choice about it. John said that he left with 3 babies who were in car seats and us still giving them baths and telling them what to do, and he came back and they could click their own car seats and pour their own cereal and drag their own suitcases, and that really did happen. They grew up in 6 months. We all did. And I really can't think of a single experience. I've been an athlete. I've been in politics. I've been blessed with success in my professional life, but I really can't think of a single experience ever that has made me more confident about everything than being a single mom. I mean, you survive that, and I feel like that's combat. I fixed plumbing, I made it to church on time, I made dinner, I helped with homework, I threw a baseball, you just do it. The only big breakdown moment happened when I was trying to watch an Alabama football game, and the TV just went out. And I was ready to pull the TV off the wall, So I called John in Afghanistan. He was out on the flight line. I said, oh no, he's being recalled. He has to get on the phone right now. So we got on Skype, and I would not let him back to that flight until he walked me through the fix. The lesson there is that you will be strong, and our families that stay at home are strong, but you will flip out and crack when you least expect it. That'll happen. So my family, a couple of things, and then we're going to close because we've got to end this sometime. But there were things that people did that were really helpful, and I want to leave y'all with that because I think that's what we really need to know. How do we help these 33,000 kids that we have that are in military-connected families, and the mamas and the daddies that support them, and the grandparents? My family listened and were sympathetic, but they didn't let me wallow in it. So don't you let those families wallow in it. That's not helpful and that's not kind. My mother came a few times when I had a particularly busy week professionally, but I had some really great girlfriends who let me put them on kid pickup lists if I ran late, and I did a lot, and I had got lots of dinner invitations, and this was really helpful to me because I didn't have to deal with cleanup or dishes, and I was encouraged to let some things go, and I did, and people understood. And I got really serious about a schedule. Where are the mamas in the house? Yeah, I got serious. You're nodding. I got serious about a schedule. You think I keep a schedule now? I got serious about that schedule, and the kids really responded well to that. The bottom line to all this is that in every part of our nation's military, every single part, Guard, Reserve, Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, we're all going to be deploying. And that's going to be the state of things for the near future. That is the politics of America right now. We've always wanted to send our troops away and have our fight be away from our shores, and that will continue. But in addition to that, we go through cycles, and we're in one now. We went through it before World War II, before World War I, before Vietnam, where we degrade our military politically, and we don't invest in it as heavily as we did before, and then something terrible happens and we have to ramp it back up again. And that happens over and over and over again. That will happen again now. We're in that cycle right now. And the way that we probably will deal with that is that our nation's military will continue to be a heavily deploying military. So we just need to know that. There's a lot of dynamics that surround that, and it's really tempting to feel despair about an enemy as evil as terrorism, an American government that sometimes just seems weak and maybe indecisive on the world stage, and families that will bear the brunt of it all. But I would encourage you not to feel despair over that. We can't. This is America. This is Alabama. We're not going to despair. We just will not. We're resilient. That's who we are. We're going to find it in ourselves to handle this. Alabamians have historically joined the Guard and the Reserves in much greater rates than other states, and I'm really, really proud of this. But we need to know that about our state, and we need to acknowledge that. We have a disproportionate number of Guardsmen and Reservists, and they will deploy. And so that was the message today. I just want you to be aware of that. I think that we can deal with it. I think that we will prevail over our enemies. I'm confident that we will, in fact. But we will fight again. We will fight harder than we fought right now. That's the pattern of things. My hope is that we will not fight on our own shores. And I think that we have very wise men and women in politics that are elected positions and in our nation's military who are advising our politicians. And so my hope is that we will be resilient. And those in this room, I appreciate your presence here today. I really appreciate the treatment of our national anthem. I think that it should be done as beautifully and with as much respect for the song as you possibly can, and it was one of the prettiest renditions of it I've ever heard. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for putting on this program and for inviting me today to be your speaker. Thank you.